This recording is very important and timely. Instead of going towards any other topic, even though it's all make-believe and forced on us by other human beings just like us, I figured I should break down the candidates for this election because apparently people still haven't got it through their heads that all they're doing is changing the slave master for their enslavement. And maybe they'll see just through the word that that's true. Because if you have seen that I've been doing this for going on 6 years online, 7 years altogether, you'll see that there is no possible way in hell or in heaven that this could all just be a coincidence. I know it's not, because I've already done this, and I know how hard that is to believe. But how would somebody, out of all the people in history, all of a sudden start talking about something that nobody else has actually talked about? When people say, oh, there's word magic, just because people say that, they think that those people have something in common with what I'm saying. But they don't at all. Because everything is words. All they're doing is saying what is actually apparent. But they've never taken the time to break down how it applies to everyone and everything in the universe, have they? No. I'm not saying this to be like, hey, look at me. I'm saying it because it's, hey, look at us. Look at who we are. It's not look at who you are, look at who I am, look at who that guy is, look who that girl is. No, it's not. This is universal. So let's just jump right in with the first one that many people know. Donald John Trump, born June 14th, 1946. If you know what Trump means, usually it's in a card game or some other thing similar, and it's the highest card temporarily that ranks above all others. Well, does he not resemble a person who thinks he ranks above all others? A businessman who owns towers and plazas and all that kind of stuff? Of course he does. If you only knew that trumpery means worthlessness, rubbish, nonsense, deceit, trickery, that's what trumpery actually means in our dictionaries. But I guess that doesn't mean anything to anybody else because they don't understand what the hell they're doing in the world and they don't know how powerful the word is. Well, put that into a category of people who are trying to make laws, rules, or run the country. So when you go to Trump, realize your last name is always first because you had your last name before you were given a first name and middle name. But he's Donald John. DJ, those are his initials. So if you're a DJ, what do? You spin the records. Okay. On top of that, you have Donald. We all know that the Don is looked at as the man in charge. And why is that? It's not just A as in active without anyone saying what to do or telling you how to be. It just means it's active. When you have D-O, now you're saying dia or to and from ongoing notion. So it's one of those things where the Don is known as the boss or the criminal boss. A lot of times he's the Don. A-L-D, not old, active, as it lies, to and from. So if you want to be the Don of active as it lies to and from, and then John, to join, but intense, ongoing here notion, then Trump, plus or to any, reference, underlying or unit, manifested potential or placement. He wants to join them and do what they were doing better. But you have to take into consideration what people he's mingling with. It doesn't matter if he's a businessman because he's now in that forum of people who want to make rules and run countries. And it involves many other lives than their own and their bunch of friends that are rich people making all kinds of money. I'm not going to try to talk bad about too many of these guys, but just wanting to be in charge of other people's lives and well-being is the greatest crime anyone could allow to happen. I say that because there are plenty of things throughout my life, and everyone's life, I'm sure, that they've disagreed with or that they've known was completely unnecessary, but you can get fined, hurt, imprisoned, even killed for resisting for something that is a man-made law on a piece of paper that you didn't follow through with. And yes, some of those smaller things you most likely won't get hurt or killed for unless you stand up for yourself to one of the henchmen that they've sent to get you. Now, what does this have to do with Donald Trump? Well, he's going to be in charge. He could sign a bill to send people off to war, which he definitely will do, which they all will do. And that isn't okay. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It's not okay to send people off to fight a war for an invisible thing called a country when this country is so broken apart, most people don't even know their neighbor, let alone their country. It's just a word we've had put in our head so much since we were born that people take false pride in it. Now just think, let's send our kids off to fight a war right after they get out of school when they were taught to have a dream and go out and do something to be productive in the world. But wait, oh ho ho, we need you to go off and fight for your life first because there's these people that these rich guys can't handle and they got suits and ties. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to put themselves at any risk. They're just going to have you send your kids off to do it and say, for our country and for our freedom, when it has nothing to do with that. Most of the time, it has something to do with an agenda, some money, or some way to keep their control. Fear tactics. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that stuff. A lot of people say it's conspiracy theories. But everything they do is a conspiracy. They conspire behind closed doors, and they tell you what they want you to hear because they think that that's what you are expecting. And then they do whatever they damn well please. Just look at how most of the presidents have some kind of criminal record, including Don. Yes, there's a part of me that understands that everyone is the universe in form playing its part. And I can appreciate that. But since we're given the ability to use our hearts and minds and free will, we can become so much better instead of becoming a tyrant or becoming some kind of powerful figure and trying to be in charge. There is no excuse for it, and it doesn't matter how long you've been alive. I'm sure you've had things in your life where it was always put up as a competition. The class president, the leader of your county or your community, the guy in charge like the mayor. All that garbage was unnecessary if we would have taught each other how to take care of ourselves. And if you saw somebody who wasn't as experienced or knowledgeable as you at something, you extend a helping hand. You help them learn how. Those are the real things in life that we should be teaching each other, things that are actually needed, not things that just give you a good time or a fleeting feel-good feeling. Those are all temporary. And when they go away, one day you'll say, what's this all about? Why is it like this? And the answer to that question is because we're voting for somebody else to make our decisions so we can follow the guidelines and fit into a category. And whether or not you see it that way, or whether or not you're one of those people who agrees, until we stand up and do something about changing it on a grand spectrum, it's going to be the same thing over and over. So there's not much I'm going to say about Donald Trump. People are going to have their own ideas, and they're not going to listen, and they're going to have some kind of made-up idea in their mind that something great's going to happen by electing some creep again who has no interest in you or I. And here's me telling you the truth, Daniel. But most people are going to want to follow a Donald, which isn't always a bad thing. But when you put the rest of it all together, it's not a good thing at all. Now, one last thing before we move on to the next, his running mate, his birthday. Now let's go into the birthday of good old Donnie. A few years ago, I recorded something that was relating how Donald Trump, Donald John Trump, DJT, and my initials DJA, and our birthdays, mine is 4/16/1980, and his is 6/14/1946. See how you have a 4 and a 6, 46? I'm 4/16, and he's 6/14. Opposites. Okay? If you can't see that that's opposite, 4/16 and 6/14. Complete opposites. And I have actually experienced creation. He is the false prophet that everybody thinks is going to be the savior. I don't want to go out on the limb and say everyone, because there's a lot of people who know that he's just a rich buffoon who has bought way too many people off. And through that, the manipulation that comes along with the media works on simple minds and weak minds that can't really think for themselves and want somebody else to protect them or take care of their problems. Unfortunately, with all the proof in the world, those people might not even be affected, and they still won't care because they want to believe, and they keep holding this stupid believing thing as if it's going to do something for them. You can't believe your way out of what is true. No matter what you want to say, you can't do that. So his birthday being 6/14 means form, force, or familiar. 14 is active dia, or active to and from, or 14 is en, the notion, the now, or nature. 1946 is to subject dia, force, because that would make more sense, or form, who he is, or familiar, what he knows about. And that's business and money and dealing with those kind of business people. It's not like anything he's going to say or do in a political forum is going to change anything that the rich tycoon, I don't care about the little guy kind of people are going to be affected by. They're not going to care. One guy isn't going to do anything. He's got a committee behind him. And everyone thinks that this candidate or that candidate is going to do anything individually. It's a whole structure behind them. And if you don't know that, and you're over the age of 10, I don't know where your brain is. But it's definitely not working properly. And I'm not saying that because it's untrue. I'm saying that because it's true, even though it may hurt some people's feelings. Sometimes you need your feelings hurt because the truth is shocking and the truth is heartbreaking. And you need to be a grown-up, especially now when times are truly changing, whether you're one of those people who doesn't like change or not. It's happening. Too bad. Get ready for it. And start being part of the change, not sitting back and letting somebody else do it. That video that I was talking about that I made a few years ago, I did a second version and I sent it to Conrad, the one who has the channel Truth and Law, and it goes into not only the three amigos, I won't get into that now, but how Donald Trump and Anton Sander LaVey are two people who have opposite resonations of me, with Donald J. Trump, DJT, and Daniel Jared J. Alexander, DJA, along with 416 for me and 614 for him. Those are complete opposites. Then we have Anton Sander instead of Dan, D-A-N. You have Anton, A-N-T-O-N, because T is the to-any form of D. D is the once tense, the dia, the most intimate version, the closest to one's self when it comes forth into the light. It's not just to-any. I'll do a video on Anton LaVey another time. I didn't want to put that out because I don't want people to get shook up when I start showing them how somehow my name is resonant with all of the divine masters and all of the enlightened beings in a positive way, and it's opposite in some way or other, and it's usually very on point with all of the people who've done negative things in the world, or who are demonic, or people who started satanic cults, or are in them. My name happens to be an opposite resonation of that. Now, after everything I've talked about, and me being honest about seeing this whole universe be created, people would literally have to be ignorant on purpose to not see that what I'm saying is true. So I'll do all of that other stuff on a different video because we just need to address the problems right now. When people are ready to understand who we really are, not just out in the physical world, then we'll go into those deeper things that have to do with spirit and the people who started these occult places. But for now, we've got to take care of what's going on in our physical world and not let people run our lives and not let things like money be so much more important than the living world. I know we're so far in the hole that everybody that I've ever met thinks that we couldn't live without money. And then people think, we'll do the barter system because that way we can keep doing all this dumb stuff. No, we need to actually cut the dumb stuff out. Get rid of some of our hobbies that are actually toxic to the environment. Sorry, even to my friends and family, you've got a lot of stuff you've got to stop doing. Not because I say so, because it's distracting you from the main purpose of being alive. If you like football games and basketball games and baseball games, then by all means play them. Don't sit on your fat ass watching it and forgetting about your family. On the one day most people get to rest and relax, all they're going to do is sit and watch a bunch of other people do stuff. And maybe if they got a kid who really loves them, they'll train their kid to grow up doing the same thing, sitting around and watching sports when they have time with their family and friends. Or that'll be the way that they bond with their family and friends, which is just another version of the Coliseum, watching people compete and thinking that's what the world's all about. Who's better than the other? No one really cares deep down. It's only a contest with an outcome, that you'll forget about most likely. And even if you remember it, it's not going to help anything. Think about how many people know all the stats of this and that. It's sad. But anyway, we'll move on because I have so many things I want to talk about. I could care less about this fake political shit. But everyone I know is still stuck in it. And I have family members who are really thinking that it's going to do something good for people. And I don't even want to associate with them because they don't have a brain cell that's working. And they get offended when I tell them the truth and say, well, learn how to take care of yourself and grow your own food and stop eating junk all day and sitting around doing nothing. Please. You can't tell me you think you're a responsible adult when you sit around and do nothing and you act like a child and eat little kitty candies. It is so sad. And I say it because I'm concerned about the people I love and care about. And no matter who you are, you're involved in that circle somewhere. Even these clowns in the political field. I just wish they'd stop doing the shit they're doing to other people who are alive and deserve to be respected and treated better. And I actually have ideas to fix all of our problems. All of them. I just need people who are willing to actually help me put them into practice and change the world. Changing the world itself is not going to happen by just wanting it to. We've actually got to do things to change it and get rid of things that we don't need anymore. That should not be that hard to comprehend. As long as you can polish off a couple of them brain cells and get them activated again, we can rebuild from the bottom up. So yes, the old life we knew needs to be destroyed, but not physically, in our hearts and souls. And then we need to rebuild with something that's actually good. And of course, we don't need to. We can just live as slaves and get more enslaved if that's what you really want for your children's future. And if that's the case, shame on you. You should have never had a family because you don't deserve it if you're not taking care of them the right way. So before we go into Chump's running mate. Oh, did I say chump? I meant lump. Oh, no, I mean spump. Never mind. All they do is wordplay anyway. They tell you they're going to do this and do that, and then they get elected. And they don't do anything but cover up for all the things they lacked. The things that they said they'd do and never did. And the only people who say they did so well are the people who are brainwashed and don't know how to take care of themselves. Other than comply with the system and get a good nest egg, hoping for their 401ks and Medicares. Obviously, those things aren't real by nature. Those are forced onto us by the system we've grown up in. And once we see that nature doesn't require you to have a 401k or Medicare, it will work along with you when you start taking care of yourself the right way, not poisoning yourself and all that extra shit. Well, let's move into J.D. Vance. It's not even his real name. Either way, let's just go with the initials that he's resonating with to everybody across the country. If you want to advance, that's A.D. Vance together. If you have the active to and from vital active notion constant to itself expressing, that means you, or whoever you're talking about with the word advance, is moving forward. If you have somebody that just happens to be joining along with a guy named Donald, the dawn of Ald, active as it lies, to and from, and you have a name like J.D. Vance, you don't want to advance. J is the 10th letter. D is to and from that 10th. Vance. So if we want to advance, we're not going to do it with those goons. You've got to understand, they're basically mafia in suits and ties. And I know people don't like certain words, but that's one of the most accurate ways to describe that whole group of people who want to run our lives and put laws in place for us. A bunch of goons dressed up in suits. That's basically the mafia. They're even worse, honestly, because they get away with it. And they can kill people and have people applaud them for it. How sick have people become to applaud somebody who wants to start a war instead of dealing with the problems that each one of us has when they arise, having a group of people that you care about and that care about you, that not only protect and help you maintain and produce your own resources. For some reason, people think that's such a bad thing or so hard. But let's just go into J.D. Vance, or Mr. Bauman, or Bowman. I don't know how you say it. It doesn't really matter. Because if you're going to bow to the man, why do you think he's Vice? His original name was Bowman. You're going to bow to the man. And he's a hunter. What do you know? Bowman. Or the intense to and from, vital, active nature, constant to itself expressing. He loves to hunt. He's all about it. That mentality doesn't just stay in the woods. It stays in the person. Now let's dive into his name and birthday. If this by some chance is the first recording you've heard of mine, then you may think that this is all coincidence. But it's definitely not. I want to show you how Bowman and Vance are tenses of the same word. Now, first of all, just think of simple things like BO, the abbreviation for body odor. Base on going. It's a 2, and then an O, which is the 15th letter right in the center. VA is the 22nd letter, followed by an A, the first letter. So we're going from 22 to 1, and then from 2 to 15. So 1 is a base ongoing. Other people can notice it intense ongoing. See how O is in the teens. It's actively expressing. When somebody is said to be something like vain, V-A-I-N, they are vital, active, identified notion. Other people notice that they are full of themselves. V being 22 in the 20 category, it's to any that notices the person is vain because it's vital, active, identified notion. Because the person who's vain thinks that their identified notion is vitally active. See how that is? Vain, when someone's full of themselves or just too stuck on their looks. Now, finish the word out. Bowman, M-A-N, is the same thing as A-N-C-E because C and E are 3 then 5, which is that shape spin that I've showed you before, and then A-N followed by a C, which is 3, is the same thing as M and then A-N because M is 13. M's already in tense. C is in once, with an E expressing it. Do you see how Bowman and Vance are spun around words of different tenses? I know that's hard for most people to get, but this is stuff you learn outside the body instead of inside a body with the brain that's easily manipulated. When I say outside the body, I mean you can do it from where you are, but you have to go inside yourself and use that energy that isn't necessarily your body. It just happens to manifest there during your lifetime. I know these things sound wild and crazy, but they're not. They're actually in everything. It's just that no one that I've ever heard of in history or met in my life has any clue about the true reality of the world and how odd and strange it really seems. Although nature doesn't think so. Nature has to work a certain way, and it does. And I'm the only person alive teaching it. And I also don't want anything from you. I guarantee if you put the things into place that I'm talking about, your life will change. It may not be as exciting with all the gadgets and material things we have, but your heart and soul will truly be growing in the way that you would like. You just haven't had somebody help you do it yet. So just how Bowman and Vance are switched around words, see how B-O-W, the word bow or the word bow, they're spelled the same. Why is that? If a person bows to another person, base ongoing, plural. Okay? You stand in one spot, your base bends forward and comes back. That's base ongoing, plural. Now if you have a bow, it's a stick or some kind of arch with a string on it, and that base on goes plural. You pull it back, you let it go. Is that not base ongoing plural? Of course it is. It's just that no one else says that. And the reason I do is because those words specifically apply to the letters. They mean that. But not only do they mean it, there are tenses to that. To use the word base for be is the best example I can give that just about applies to everything. It's not that it's loosely comparable. The words to explain them aren't existing. They're shapes in space. And I'm doing the best I can to put it in words for people who don't have that unspoken knowledge within them. I do. I'm just trying to put it into words from the person that I am. And I'm not going to go out of my way to learn big, fancy, schmancy language just to confuse people. I want our kids to be able to understand this. And I know they could if parents actually had them apply themselves to what actually matters not giving them their treats and giving them their snacks and having their phones, and those need to take a break for a while. They're never just going to disappear, but we've got to learn to place some boundaries on ourselves. As I've stated many times, there is power in the word, and each of us has a name resonation when we're born. With J.D. Vance, started as James Donald Bowman, then his mother remarried, so he became James David Hamill, then James David Vance, and then to straight J.D. Everyone likes straight J.D., right? He's changed his name many times, which, whether we get it or not, that changes your resonation, slightly in some ways, but profoundly in the universe, in the one voice. All right, well, let me show you how that goes into play. For a person whose father left his life when he was at walking age and didn't want any part to do with his father, that's going to have a long-term effect on someone. J.D. Vance had a father who left before he was walking age. His mother remarried to another man named Robert Hamill. So then his name was legally changed, which does not matter if you legally change anything by man's law. But if you don't understand the word, the logos is in the word legal, but it's bastardized. Instead of Logos, it's Legal. Like I said, it's very bastardized. Our idea of man's law is in a way corrupting the universal law, because you started off with one resonation and then it was changed. Now, it's not his fault that his name was changed by his mother at a young age, but whether we know it or not, that resonates differently, because now he's got a whole new set of influences in his life, and he learns a different way from a different person. But that doesn't mean that the DNA that he was born with in the resonation doesn't stay there. Of course it does, because he's going to know that his birth father is out of his life, and now he's got a new quote-unquote legal father. And then when his mother divorced that one, he didn't have a name of anybody that was actually in his life anymore. So he took the name of a person he held dearly, whose last name was then Vance. There's no harm in that. But that does change your resonation once again. And then change your name into a JD with no periods. Now you're intense to and from. So with all the things I've said so far about him, try to realize that all of those name resonations apply and carry forth, even though some are way in his past. One was there when he was born and left early. Another one was part of his life for 20 years. Then he named himself after someone he loved and held dearly, someone who raised him, his mama. All of those things have an effect on your universal vibration and on your soul. It doesn't matter if we get it or not. It does. And like I was saying with Donald Trump being DJT and me being DJA, now instead of DJ, we have JD. Turn it around. Something that's already intense to and from. He's the second man. He's Vice. Along with that, his birth name, base ongoing plural, man, he went from one guy, he left, and then there was another guy in his life. Two men. Base ongoing plural, man. Now that's out of his life. Now he's Vance. Like I had already said earlier, B.O. from Bowman is B2 ongoing. Now we have 22, V, and A together as a W. That's plural. But now it's him individually. Vital, active. Notion, constant to itself, expressing. The word man starts with an M, 13, then A-N. Take all that other stuff away from the first part. We had B-O-W, that's gone. He's singular, V-A. But then you have, from M-A-N, it goes A-N-C-E, 3. And then the shape of a 3 turned backwards is E. So you're saying vital, instead of B-O-W, all that's gone. It's just V and A, which would have been the W. Now it's broken up. The base ongoing part is gone out of his life, and he's not plural. He's individual, vital, active. And then you have ANCE, which is not MAN, 13, AN. It's AN, 3 expression. Still to himself, constant to himself. But with his first 2 initials, JD, he's running for vice with someone whose initials are DJ, T. My initials being DJ, A. His initials being JD, V. A V is an upside down A without the line in the middle because it's open to any. It's vital. I know this kind of stuff really gets people lost, but it shouldn't because you know what shapes look like. You know what things mean. This all adds up. All of it. I'm not saying it for fun. I know how odd and strange it can sound to people, but it is what it is. I've talked about this for years and years, saying how everything will add up. I've seen this already. I've done this before. And when I say that, I know people get lost because they're looking at the details that they see every day in the news and on TV. And all those things don't matter. Tomorrow, the stuff you heard today isn't that profound unless you hold on to it. The things that are profound are your life. Now, I'm going to finish off J.D. Vance because I didn't really say all that much about him. I said his details, but there's so much more to it. I don't have anything against the guy. He's gone through hardships. So many people have lived their lives without a father figure. He didn't have his birth father, and then he had another man who was his father, and then he's gone out of his life after 20 years. That does something to somebody. Now, you're going to want to be the man that you didn't have in your life. And what other way to do that but to try to be part of running the country? Unfortunately, their past is still in there, and they have resentment. They obviously haven't worked it out if they think running for political office is something that's noble. It's not. It's actually complete bull. So to finish off with his birthday, which is August 2nd, here base. So somebody's already there. Here base. 1984. Do you know what 1984 is? Do you know what that story's about? These things aren't coincidences. They're omens. I'm not saying this for fun. Now when we go into the next 2, you'll see that neither of these candidates are any good for us. One's lying one way, one's lying the other way. It's all a game of tug-of-war with your feelings and your trust. And once you stop letting your feelings get played with, and you stop trusting people who want to run your life as if they're better than you, or they hold some power over you, you'll start seeing that it's up to you to take care of yourself. Always has been, always will be. Those people have always been there causing problems for other people. They're not making things better. The political group has always made it hard. They may lighten up their demands because they know that that will get people frustrated and they'll revolt. So they have to do something until they have all their stuff in place and it's too late. And they're doing that behind closed doors and behind everybody's back. When you look at these people, you can see that they're not the most trustworthy people. If you have good intuition, you can look at them and see how devious they are. You can look at their face and see that they're not being honest. You can see their demeanor and listen to their wording and see that they're not being truthful. I don't know where that ability is in other people, but I know what I feel, and I know that this is not good for us, no matter which way people think their vote is going. But to officially wrap it up with J.D. Vance and his birthday, you have intense, to and from, vital active notion, constant to itself, expressing. So it's something intense, to and from, so he's going to be secondary as a vital active notion, constant to itself, expressing. And then you have his birthday, here, base, subjecting, here, to and from. So there's already a here base, and he's subjecting, here, to and from, that. Vice president. If you don't see how that resonates perfectly, you're not looking. And I know it's way different than most people think. Because when I say it's universal, that means it applies to everything in the world, not just our country, not just the people running for our fake political offices that mean nothing, but to enslave the populations. I will never be okay with this, and you shouldn't be either. Because I'm not wrong. If I'm wrong, it's like you're saying that you're not worthy of taking care of yourself and being in charge of your own life and making your own decisions. If that's the case, boy oh boy, do we have a great country full of people who can't do anything for themselves. It's not an independent world. It's a dependent world, 100%, if that's what you believe in or what you follow. Think about it, and please, like I've said, tell me where I'm wrong. Anyone who may be listening to this, I want you to please take into consideration that when I break these things down, I'm doing it because I know what I'm talking about, not because I think I know what I'm talking about. If you only knew that other than talking about the word, I see visions and I see things happen before they happen. And I see mostly pain, suffering, and death. And to try to deal with that and put on a smiley face and have a happy sounding voice when I do this is not easy. So try to understand why it gets me angry. I love people and I try all day to be a voice of reason to help them understand what matters. Because there is something that matters. And if you're alive and you're living and you can feel life within you, then you should understand that the living world is more important than laws placed upon us by other people. And if you don't understand that, and you're someone who's older than the age of 15, then you're very immature. And I'm not saying that because I want to piss anybody off. I'm angry because I'm in a world full of people who are happily handing over their right to live and be free by voting for somebody to make laws on other people and enslave them, while at the same time the people voting for these people are just agreeing to keep paying these people taxes and work meaningless jobs while we tear up the planet we live on and kill each other so that big corporations can make money and pay these people to stand in front of us and lie to us. There's no way in hell I can be okay with that. And there's no way on earth I can be okay with that. With that aside, I'll move on to Kamala Harris. Kamala Devi Harris. I'll do each name, first broken down in letter form, and then I'll go into how every name of her full name happens to have a religious or a deity name to it. First we'll do Kamala. Kamala. K is kinetic, A is active, M is manifest, A is active, L is as it lie, or the active base, or when you come to the unseeable, you'll say ling, and then active. The sound alike, her name is Kamala. She's got a calmer voice than the other guy going, we're going to come in and we're going to build back better. To tell you the truth, they can both go to hell. Because that's all they're going to do to us. No matter how lovely and wonderful they make it sound, if you can take care of yourself, you don't need somebody else to come in there and make promises, whether they hold up to them or not, which most likely they won't. But I'm not going to go too far into ranting on this one. Going more into Kamala, in some of the ancient dialects, Ka, Ka, is what the Egyptian people would consider your body to be holding inside it. During your lifetime and then after your lifetime, it leaves. But their idea of mummification was to keep you basically what we would consider like a trophy or a statue so that your life energy could somehow find its way back to you. Yeah, that's kind of a weird way to think. Let's wrap this dead body up and do whatever. But that's what they believed because they believed that your body held something called the Ka. Other dialects would have called it the Ki. Other dialects would have called it other things. But that happens to be that one. When you see that her middle name is a Sanskrit word, and then you look at what Sanskrit means when you take the other parts of her name, it's kind of freaky and weird. So when you look at Kamala and say Ka, that meant the dark life energy, that which your body holds in it, and then that which leaves your body when you die. Not the light energy, because when you die, your light is gone. So that dark energy that is here, basically your soul, but they would call it Ka, leaves you. If you've ever seen the movie Jungle Book, there is a boa constrictor named Ka. What does a boa constrictor do? It kinetically activates upon itself, and it squeezes the life energy out of you. That's a character, so that character's name was two A's upon itself. So if that's too weird, then we'll use a different dialect in what Kama means, Kama. It's a farm tool, like a sickle, used to reap your harvest, and sometimes used for martial practices. Do you know what martial means when they say martial law? If you wanted to use a comma for the reaping or pulling in your grain, and you happen to put one up there with comma, la, as in language, or the sixth note of the octave, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, followed by T, which her running mate happens to be Tim, T-I. I mean, this is all word, and word is sound, and sound solidifies here. You have to understand that. This is me showing you that if we elect people in charge of our lives for us to run our lives, it's a dark omen to elect these people. Even if they have a happy, smiley look, and even if they have a real calm voice, just sound out her name. Like I said, it's the addition, it's the movement, it's the letter placement, and also how a word sounds. Almost like that baby language. And it's not a baby language, it's just so profound and so simple to understand that it seems too simple. But if you say, comma, la, like I said, the calm voice to bring you in, the tool they use for reaping, something used in martial practices. Now just move to her middle name, Devi, D-E-V-I, Daya, expressed, vital identity. So to and from the expressed vital identity, Devi, in Sanskrit, that's supposed to mean goddess. Well, that would be so great. But if someone reels you in, they got us. She's trying to talk people into going for her side. And the other guys are trying to do the same thing. That's what they're going to do. It's called dividing people. Because if you're going to pick that side or that side, you're obviously divided. If we can't find a way to reach a middle ground and say, your beliefs are this, our beliefs are this, but what's best for everybody and the planet? That should come first. That shouldn't be looked at as some childish view of the world. If you actually care about the world, the animals and nature, that should not be looked at as some kind of stupid thing. That should be first and foremost. Our greatest ancestors knew that and lived that. And somehow that just got lost in the shuffle when we started getting all advanced like we think we are. And we're not. Either way, Devi, if she's the goddess, Daya, express vital identity, from you, you give her your power. From her, she says what you can do or helps you get things that you ask for as long as you're in her crew. Because she's going to help the middle working class keep more of their money. What's the middle class? Over $65,000 to $80,000 or more? What if you don't make that much? You don't qualify for her crew. That's great. On top of all that, if you were the dark mother, Ka, Ma, and you were the Ling activation, the speaking voice of, or the active base activation, the one standing there as the dark mother, I don't want the dark mother goddess to be in charge of anybody. And then when you say Harris, the letter R is always symbolic to a human being if you're talking about a person, because you're saying that's who you are, or that's who we are. That's not just funny little coincidences. It's the active here. 18. AH. That's literally what R is. And if you have two of them upon themselves, you have here, active, reference upon itself, identified subject. And what subject is that identifying? Oh, the dark mother goddess. I think I could pass on that one. Now look at her birthday. She's October 10, or J, the intense, 20th, 2 or plus, 1964. Just like Donald Trump was 46, his birthday is 6/14, mine is 4/16, his birth year is 46, hers is 64. His running mate happens to be 1984. If you don't know what that means, please look into what 1984 represents and look at the story by George Orwell. Just a little bit. Just take a small glimpse. It just may perhaps make you scratch your head and say, this is all an omen, whether we get it or not. So since her last name is Harris, the here active reference upon itself identified subject, the dark mother goddess, intense, to any, form, force, or familiar, to and from. You see how Donald Trump was 6/14, the form, force, or familiar notion, 1946, to and from form or force? She happens to be October, J, intense, 20th, 2 1964. Opposite of 46, subjecting form, force, or familiar to and from. If that doesn't sound like somebody who's going to try to run for the president, you're not listening to how this actually does work and add up and why this is how they are in the world. That's her. There is so much more to say with all the ancient dialects, but since most people don't understand most things that are real, they would think that that makes no sense because they've got the new app, they've got the new this, they've got the new that, which keeps them completely distracted, and they like it so much, they'll spend their lives stuck on those things until someone either takes it from them or they realize that all it's been doing is holding them back. One last thing before I move on to her running mate and wrap this video up. I just heard somebody today say, well, you do know that money makes the world go around, don't you? I said, no, it doesn't. Money is what holds us down. If it does anything going around, it goes around and around in circles and flushes us down a hole, because that's all money is done. Most of the richest people did not get their money from doing it in an honest, wholesome way. They did it by cheating people. They did it by sometimes killing people. They did it by stepping on other people and destroying things to get their way through force and through manipulation. That's no one to idolize. Just because you heard stories made up about them to make them sound like heroes and they had your complexion or your color of skin doesn't mean anything. I have nothing against Kamala Harris as a person. I have nothing against Donald Trump or J.D. Vance as people. But anyone trying to say that they have the position to run my life is never going to be somebody that I accept as that position, because I'm that for myself. And every single one of us is. And I'm trying to show you that you have the power to run your own life and to be in charge of yourself. If America wants to be this great place, that's what we should be the example of. People who learn how to take care of themselves and the people around them in the world they live in. Not to get some tax cuts. Not to get some of your money back. Not to build back better. Dawn old, build back better. Okay, what we've done of old. Build back better. Kamala with the calm voice saying, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to do that for you, because she takes the here active reference upon itself identified subject and to or from the vital identity, she says it with a calm voice. And all she wants to do is reel you in for the reaping in martial practice. This isn't just me saying this stuff. Look it up. Put it all together. And if it's possible, stop only coming from your logical mind and start using your heart too. Because our kids need us. They really need us bad, now more than ever. That's why I get so worked up about this stuff. Just ask yourself the question. Do you want to actually be part of a world where you're waiting to see what the high-class people tell you what you can and can't do? I know I sure as hell don't. I'm done pretending. And I'm sorry that you aren't. In all actuality, money is just as pretend as Santa Claus. Voting for somebody to be in office is truly giving away your power and willingly enslaving everyone you know, because you're not brave enough to take care of yourself or learn how. That's the hard part, and I know that we can do it together because I'm here ready. I've been ready for years. But let's not waste any more time and finish with Tim Walz. Since the other ones were so lengthy, I'm going to make this one kind of short. Besides, Tim Walz doesn't have much to say about him. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I mean, he's got his life behind him. He's got his history and all that kind of stuff. And as an individual, good for him. I hope he enjoyed his life. I hope all of them enjoy their life. But I want that to be away from trying to represent other people instead of learning how to teach people how to be self-efficient. Instead of depend on us and we'll give you stuff. And you can just vote for me and I'll make all these problems go away. Because none of them are going to do that. None of them can do that. The whole point is to work on helping individuals find their heart, find their connection to the world, and find their connection to nature. There's nothing else to do here besides that. And when we have people who are more worried about their tax cuts, their tax breaks, their prescription drugs, all that crap is actually the biggest anchor on not only our country, but on humanity, because a lot of our tendencies and a lot of our traits and trends have gone over to other countries, and we're poisoning them. Just from the food system, how the other countries are starting to get more obese because they're eating the sad diet. It hurts my heart knowing that America, this great American dream that they talk about, once it gets to other countries, you show that it kind of ruins them because of how toxic our way of life is. And people get mad at me for saying that when I say, don't you see how the children are acting? Don't you see how things are falling apart? Don't you see how most people don't even get along with their neighbors and half of their family members? Do you think that that's a safe structure to grow up in and have your kids be around all the time? It's not getting better, it's getting worse. And the only way to fix that is to work on people caring about each other and bringing people together in person, not online. That can be a way to start, but we've got to do this in person to show that we're real people who care about each other and care about what matters in life. So let me go into Timothy James Walls, born April 6th, 1964. There we have 4664. Do you happen to notice that these numbers and these initials are in all of the candidates' names? If you think that's just a coincidence and don't realize that the power is in the word, then you're still missing the point, and you're looking for proof based off of something that other people are talking about in the media, and that's just going to keep you more and more lost until you really see what's happening. Most people just overlook the importance of words and letters and what they mean. But when they find out they actually mean things, wow, golly, just maybe we should try to understand them a little more instead of saying, that's interesting, but I don't care. I want to create my own reality. Because little do they know, you can't create your own reality. The universe works a certain way, and it always will, regardless of what human beings want it to be. I will continue to talk about the importance of the word because it is that important. Everything we know, the words we speak, are put together of letters, and those letters actually mean something. We just think we're so intelligent because we got all these cool machines and gadgets, but most of us don't remember anything beyond maybe 100 years ago at most, unless they read it in a history book. And a lot of that, in fact, most of it, is doctored so that you follow and have confidence in people you shouldn't. To show how odd some of this stuff may be to people until it gets pointed out, we have Timothy James Walls, which is TJW, and it's just peculiar that he was born in 64, which is a 6 and a 4. Then we have Donald J. Trump, which is DJT, born 6/14, 46. And then we have his running partner, J.D. Vance. So he's got a J and a D, and he's second to Trump. Then we have Kamala Harris, who happens to be born on October, which is 10, or J, 20th, which is T, and then 64. The only one who doesn't have a 6 in his is Vance, who was born in 84, which I said, look into 1984, and that means that he's secondary, or running for vice president, because it's HD, here, to and from. Somebody's already there. Now when we go into Timothy James Walls, if I hadn't said before, in this video, James, the middle name of both candidates, literally means intense, active manifest, expressed subject. So somebody's already there. The name James, if you don't notice that the J is shaped like a hook and similar to an I, it means it's in junction with what's identified. That's why Jesus starts with a J, because everything is I's and O's when we talk about computing, but everything in the natural world runs the same. It's not like that started out of nowhere and someone just picked it out of thin air. Not at all. So when you go Timothy James, I happen to have an uncle named Timothy who was a prison guard who stands next to something. Plus, identified manifestation, or if you don't like plus, you could say to any. Identified manifestation, ongoing. Plus, here, vitally identified. See how that's secondary? And then James, like I said, intense, active manifest, express subject. The junction to AMS. And AMS is plural, if you would put AMES. But that's not a word we actually say. It just happens to be a word, but it's placed as a name. The intense, active manifest, express subject. So that means it's in junction to something. Then his last name is Walls, which is a W that happens to be a plural symbol, active as it lies. from one side to the other with a Z. So if there's already somebody there, he has plus identified, manifest, ongoing, plus here vital identified. James as in the junction to the active, manifest, express subject, and walls as in plural, active as it lies from side to side. It's not a wall as in W-A-L-L. It's a wall as in plural, active as it lies from side to side in what? He's running for an office that represents the country. So that's not a wall. That's from side to side. Plural, active as it lies from side to side. And that also goes with him being secondary because it's plural. He's going to be with somebody else. Is it a coincidence that Donald Trump wanted to build walls and Harris has a running mate named Walls? Is it a coincidence that J.D. Vance had a birth father named Donald and wanted that name removed from his life? But now he's going to play second fiddle to a guy named Donald, as well as Kamala Harris. Her father's name is Donald. Doesn't anybody think that's odd? Or it's all coincidence? Of course it's not. These people are handpicked in groups of people that none of us will ever know or talk about or even hear on the media. And that's not a conspiracy. That is going on. There's still a lot going on behind closed doors that the internet will not bring to light because there are definite ways to make sure that those things aren't out. And if they leak because someone tries to be a whistleblower, that person gets discredited or killed. Some of the extra details about Timothy Walls. His mother was a homemaker who grew up on a farm. His father was a teacher and a superintendent of a school and then served in the army during the Korean War, but worked at the family's butcher shop as a kid. Do you think any of these people really have respect for life? Growing up on a farm, and then the other one's a butcher, and they probably all gobble down dead meat, so they have animalistic thoughts, and they think the whole idea of running the world with a pecking order and running the world like it's some kind of pack or pride where there's got to be people in charge of everybody else is naturally the way they're going to think. They don't see each individual as their own free being. They see some better than others. Yeah, some people may have better abilities. Some people may be more coordinated or more able to work on a certain trade or be able to do certain things. But those are the things that give us each our individual quality where we can work together and blend as a community where we each work with each other. And the things that one can't do, they help each other. They find someone who can either help them or someone that can teach them so they can really, truly work together. That shouldn't be something that is foreign to everybody, yet it is. Don't you think that's strange? That no one's actually teaching anyone how to do the things that really matter? I keep going off on tangents because I have nothing to say really about these candidates. I'm just trying to show that this is stuff that all adds up to something that's not so good. At best, we're just going to continue in the shitty way we're going right now. At worst, it's not just going to be bad. It's going to be a lot worse than it was before. The prices will go up, the restrictions and censorship will go up, and you won't even be able to speak your mind without other people wanting you arrested or prosecuted. That's not moving in a good direction for humanity, or even just for our country. It's moving downward. These things are really hurting us. And to see people voting other people in office to represent them is a crime against every person who wants freedom. I guess I'm just going to wrap up Tim Walz because there's nothing else to really say about him. I wish him the best in the world, in life, but I do not want any of these people in office. We should not have anyone in office, and we should all be working towards raising our families and communities. I'll say it until the day I die because that's what matters. And if it's not happening, it needs to be brought up and mentioned to people so they can get that in their heads. Then after we get people on the same page, we've got to look at what we're doing to animals and nature because that's very important. There's a lot more energy going out into animals in the world than there is going out into people. The animals on our planet outnumber people still by staggering numbers. And the way we treat them is horrible. That energy does come back to us. Anyone who talks about universal energy and universal understanding should automatically take that into consideration and somewhat know that already. But for some reason, they are letting their ego get in the way, and they are letting the fact that they happen to be a human being in this lifetime interfere with their heart. Truly. It does not matter if you love the taste of this or love the taste of that. If it's a living thing, get over yourself and start working towards getting that out of your system so that you don't see it worth anything to take a life just so that you can enjoy yours a little better. If you're defending yourself, that's a different story altogether. Just doing it because you want to, you're causing more problems in the world than you think. That's going to be it for this video because this is one of the hardest things for me to record since there are so many more important things than playing pick the leader in the world happening right now. We've got to find compassion in ourselves and extend that to others everywhere. We've got to find our center. And since no one teaches us that, it sounds foreign to just about anyone in this country. It shouldn't be a fad or a trend. It shouldn't just be something that is for a modern era. This should be part of life. When it comes to voting someone into office, if they're not talking about cleaning up the air, the water, and making sure we have healthy food over tax cuts, budget breaks, and Medicaid, then they're not interested in your real health and your real safety. They're just bullshitting you. Get it through your head, start growing up and thinking about what matters, and listen to what they're talking about and focusing on. The issues that people have in their emotion and in their tendencies to be violent, that's not going to change with the government in place. That's going to change by working on ourselves and reaching out, even though it's hard. To end off on a final note, I think I should give a quote that should be plastered on all walls and billboards, and everyone should wear t-shirts that say, "Don't vote," with a big fat period. I'm sure a lot of this may seem different because many people haven't heard me break words and letters down, but that's because they're too busy looking at the modern day chaos to actually think about the fact that maybe there's something deeper happening here in life. Because my friends, I guarantee you there is. I nominate myself to guide people, not to rule people. I know my heart's in the right place, and with a person like me helping everyone, the world will be a better place. With people who are worried more about tax breaks and all that bullshit, we're just going to plummet into a bigger hole of despair. I hate to say it, because I'm not going to be a person who says, "I told you so," ever. I'm always going to be a person who says, "I can still help you," because that's all that's left, to help people who need it. Because there are plenty of people who don't, that aren't doing anything with that privilege. Especially these wealthy people running for office. That part of them, I have no respect for whatsoever, and neither should you. Not because I say so, but because your heart knows better. I apologize for any of the anger in my voice, but that's real. And it's because I actually love you and care. So, until next time, peace and God bless.